Am I the asshole for saying that I wouldn't be playing mom with my ex's affair baby? My ex-husband and I divorced 4 years ago because he cheated. He had an affair baby, Juniper, 3 off, with the other woman, but Juniper's mom passed away when she was 1 yo. Aside from my ex-husband and his family, she doesn't have anyone else because her mom grew in the system. He and I have 4 kids, Joshua 20M, Cassidy 16F, Nate 11M and Jacob 8M. When we divorced, Joshua cut him off and Cassidy followed him soon after. They don't visit him anymore and has never met Juniper. He has always blamed me for that because I kept his children away. He might be an awful husband and partner, but he's an awesome dad, I'll give him that much. Nate and Jacob still visits him and are close with his baby. I tried once to take the 3 of them out when she was younger, but it wasn't for me. I know she's blameless, but I can't separate her from my ex's betrayal. So no, every time I pick Nate and Jacob up I try not to engage much. If she says hi, I say hi back. If she waves, I do too, but nothing more. Now, every time I pick them up, she starts to mumble mama, mama. I've tell her things like, no Juniper, I'm not your mom, call me my name. I'm fine with that. Last time she actually ran at me calling me mama and began to cry when I didn't pick her up and took her with me. Listen, I don't think my ex is telling her to call me mom, but that's how Nate and Jacob acts, especially Jacob. He runs at me saying mom, mom, and hugs me, so I guess she's copying his behavior. Yesterday my son spent Easter with my ex's family, and Juniper ran at me again. I said hi and my ex asked for a second, which I said yes. He basically told me that seeing me picking the boys up, being affectionate and loving with them is confusing and hurting Juniper. She's a baby and she doesn't understand what's happening, so he asked me if I could just take her with me for a few days like I do with the boys and maybe, over the time, let her call me mom. I said absolutely no, that I'm sorry for Juniper, but that I won't be playing mom with her and that I'm only keeping a relationship with both of them because of our sons. He called me heartless and pointed out how she cries when I leave without her, but I said that it wasn't my problem and that he should deal with that. He later sent a video of Juniper crying by the door and said, I hope you're happy. So, am I the asshole? I mean, I know it's not her fault, but isn't mine either. I hate my life. I hate my kid. I resent my family. I resent my in-laws. I resent my wife. I hate myself. I never wanted kids, but was never adamantly against having one. I get married. My wife knows how I feel about kids. When we were engaged, my answer was maybe 1, definitely not more. As my friends started having kids, I started leaning heavily against having kids. Some parents had good kids. Some parents had bad kids. Even the easy kids looked like too much work. Cue my wife's sister dying. All of a sudden family is super important to my wife. I get that. At this point my answer to kids was still no. My wife bothered me and bothered me. Eventually I was convinced. The deal was her parents would sell their ranch and come live on our street. I was convinced. I was so dumb. I was told not to worry about all the realities of having a kid and losing my life, because grandma and grandpa are down the street and would be all the parents baby ever needed. Since my wife's sister died, she was the only hope for grandkids. My wife and her parents worked me over so good. They convinced me. They made good points. My wife's parents were in their 50s and good health. They would be here beyond the baby phase and would have enough energy to keep up with a kid. I'm shown enough Disney movies and Kodak moment and am promised that I just have to be a good dad and provider. A 1950s dad, if you will, one where the mom unfairly does all the hard stuff. All the good and no bad? Cool, fine by me. Well, here we are, 11 years later. My kid has odd, which is pretty much alphabet soup for your kid being an asshole and defiant. Nothing else is wrong with them. The diagnosis is literally that they are vindictive and cruel and seek conflict. Not because they can't communicate or our hips are sensitive to stimuli, but just because. Guess what? Grandma and grandpa say the kid is too much. They haven't helped for more than a day a month in almost 7 years. And here I am, on Reddit on my laptop, tethered to my phone in a parking lot at the park after dark. I came home from work to my son spitting on the neighbors to doorknob. His reason: get the neighbors sick. Why does he want them sick? His Amazon package got delivered to their house in the morning and they waited until evening to give it to him. Well, in returning for telling him not to do that, my son went into the attic and peed all over the one banker's box of memorabilia I have from my parents, who both died before I was 20. I left the house and am sitting in my car. I don't know if I'm coming back, and I don't want advice. This isn't lack of discipline or bad parenting. I've read every book. I've worked shifts 6 days a week for a decade to pay for tens of thousands, probably 100,000s, of therapy, behaviorists, counseling, classes, you name it. At the end of the day, it is my fault. I am so spineless. I knew I didn't want kids. I was convinced, because, well, I'm a jellyfish. And here I am. 45 years old, crying in my car in the park. My advice to other men and women out there: only have a kid if you 1000% want them. Don't listen to others when they say they'll help. They'll help if you have a happy, bubbly, easygoing kid. Not if you spawn the devil himself. Am I the asshole for kicking my friend out of my bedroom so my wife could take a nap? Throwaway account. So, I 28M have a wife 27F who works full-time as a CNA while she is in school to become an autopsy technician. She works a lot. She is constantly picking up extra shifts, working doubles and even triples. She does all that on top of going to school full-time. Because of that, she often takes a nap after work. Well, yesterday, I had a friend over who I will call E. My wife and E do not get along as E makes her uncomfortable, but she and I don't prevent one another from seeing friends just because one of us doesn't like the other's friend. E was over at mine and my wife's house playing video games when my wife calls to tell me she's on her way home from work. She sounds exhausted and I asked her if she felt okay to drive, and if not I'd come pick her up from work and go back to gather the car later. She says she's fine to drive and that she'll see me later. I said okay and told her I loved her. E and I go back to playing video games. It is worth mentioning that the only TV my wife and I have is in our bedroom. I was laying on the bed playing and E was sitting in my desk chair. About 15 minutes or so later I hear my wife come in the house and call out to let me know she was home. I come into the living room and give her a kiss. She all but collapses into my arms, exhausted to the point she couldn't even walk to the bedroom. I ask her if she's okay and she says yeah, just a long day at work. I really need a nap. I nodded and told her to come lay down in the bed. When we get to the bedroom I politely tell E that he needed to leave as my wife was exhausted and we could play. E asks why he needs to leave and why my wife can't just sleep while he and I keep playing. I explained that it was just a game and that my wife and her needs came first. E then asks why my wife couldn't just take a nap on our living room couch. I told him I wasn't making her sleep on the sofa just because he wanted to keep playing. E gets pissed and slammed his controller down on the dresser and goes to leave. Before he does, he turns to my wife and tells her, "I'll bet you're happy he always feels like he has to pick you over anyone else." He leaves and slams the door on the way out. My wife turns to me and starts to apologize, saying she could have just slept on the couch. I tell her no, she couldn't have, and tell her to get some rest. Later that night my other friends are blowing up my phone saying things along the lines of brothers before house and saying it was rude to kick E out just so my wife could sleep. All of my married friends however are on my side, saying my wife's needs come first before my friends. E is now saying he won't speak to me until I apologize. So am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for ransacking my boyfriend's apartment? I, F25, had been with my boyfriend Jake, M34, for 8 months. Things were fine until I, against my better judgment, moved into his place a couple months ago. Since then, he's been getting kind of possessive and protective. I immediately told him to cut that shit out because it's off-putting, and things seem to get better. Anyway, I have a friend in Mexico who is getting married. I've been excited to fly down for her wedding since she told me she was engaged a year ago. However, Jake has made it clear that he doesn't want me to go. He says Mexico is too dangerous, even though I've been there many times and even lived there for a year, speak Spanish, have friends there, and know my way around. No matter what I say, he doesn't want me to go. Then a couple of days ago my passport went missing from my nightstand. I'm supposed to go tomorrow, so I wouldn't have time to get a new one. I looked everywhere, no luck. When I asked Jake about it, he behaved a little suspiciously, but I dismissed it because I couldn't believe he would actually take my passport to keep me from going. But he's been giving me some red flags, so I decided to have a thorough look around. When he went out this morning, I started going through everything. As I searched, I became increasingly certain that he took my passport. I started off carefully picking through drawers and cabinets, but as my anger grew, I became a lot less careful. I started turning out drawers, pried open a briefcase, made a total mess. But I found it. It was behind some books on the bookcase in his study. I never go into his study. He definitely put it there. Now he's furious with me for going through his things and ransacking his place. He said he would have given my passport back, and there was no need for me to go crazy. I'm just angry that he took it to begin with, and I don't believe him when he says he was going to give it back. This is only my third serious relationship, and I have no perspective on this kind of thing. Am I the asshole for overreacting and ransacking my ex-boyfriend's place? Am I the asshole for letting my mother-in-law and sister-in-law find our hubby's and mine bedroom toys because I suspected they snooped in my drawers? My 27F husband, 32M, and I have been dating for 6 years and married for 4. We have a 3-year-old baby boy, and since we don't plan on having more children, I told my husband that I wanted to get my boobs redone because I wanted them more perky and I had surgery last year. My mother-in-law has always been sniffy because my husband is her only son. We've gone LC over the years because she's overbearing with him and dismissing with me. Things got a little better when our baby was born, but after my surgery, oof, it's like I wrote in my forehead, look at my boobs. I want to cheat on my husband. She's always implying that I did it for male validation. Yeah, your son's FFS. That I'll leave my husband. That I look like a hooker because I wear stuff that shows cleavage, that I could have gotten them a little smaller, everything. She also complained about my clothes, and underwear, a lot, because no married woman with a child should dress like this. And see, that's what stung me because, how could she know? I suspected she was going in my drawers, but my husband told me that she could never. She made a comment about a cute set of lingerie that shows basically everything and I was confused. I asked how'd she knows I have it and she said she saw it in the washing machine but I prefer to wash my sets by hand so the lace lasts longer. Anyway, we recently changed our bedroom and I had an idea to put an end to this. When I was restocking my drawers, I used one in my vanity to put all of my husband's and mine's love toys, a few sets and a dirty letter he wrote to me once. My mother-in-law visited us a few times and said nothing, so I felt bad for accusing her. But yesterday she was here with my sister-in-law and my husband and I were in the kitchen cooking for them. We heard my mill calling us and when we went to our room they were standing next to my open drawer. I just snorted, looked at my husband and said see? She snoops. My husband got red in the face, berated my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law and they both left after calling me indecent. My husband is mad at them, but he's mad at me too because he says I shouldn't have set a trap for his family and is saying we three need to apologize to each other, so maybe am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for yelling at my husband's mother for announcing my pregnancy using my husband's Facebook account? I F 23 found out that I was pregnant very recently. It was not planned and my husband and I are trying to make a decision regarding going through with the pregnancy. Here's the thing, I told him to not tell anyone but he ended up telling his mom but made her swear that she won't tell. He didn't tell her we aren't sure about it but just to stay quiet. Well, she begged and begged that she announce it on her Facebook under the guise of using our permission but I said absolutely not and lied and said my husband and I wanted to announce it ourselves later if we decide to go through with it. Just a day ago I found out she logged into my husband's Facebook account and dropped the bomb, made the announcement and yes she pretended to be my husband, behind our back. I was floored. I called her and she said she figured if she made the announcement using one of our social media accounts then we won't mind and it'd still look like we made the announcement. But like I stated earlier, we're still trying to make a decision. I lost my temper and yelled at her which made her cry. I said she overstepped and messed up completely then hung up. My husband came into the room yelling about my poor treatment and abuse towards his mom. I told him his mom violated our privacy and put us in more pressure to finally make a decision for the baby since the family are now calling to say congratulations. He said that it was his Facebook so none of my privacy was violated and that I shouldn't have yelled and hurt her feelings and made her cry no matter what. Period. He demanded I apologize and we'll talk about the pregnancy later but I didn't give an answer and refused when he tried to force me to go to her house and grovel with apologies.